Good evening, Master Jinghe, as well as all the Dharma masters and lotus friends. Namo Amituofo. In 1789, American statesman Benjamin Franklin once referred to our new U.S. Constitution in his famous quote, saying, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." Death is certain. That is not a surprise. But how many of us are prepared to face death? Let's talk about death tonight. Let me ask everyone this question. Are you ready to face death? This is my topic for this evening. We humans cannot avoid death, yet we are not willing to talk about death, nor face death. Many people refuse to talk about death because it is a very sensitive and morbid subject, and it can make many people feel uncomfortable. Different cultures around the world have different views on death. Asian countries recognize death as an inevitable path in life. In Japan, children at a very young age are taught that death is unavoidable. In Western countries, death is considered taboo, especially in America. Before the 20th century, people often died at home and family members prepared their bodies for burial. But now, dying has moved out of the homes and into hospice facilities and out of the care of the immediate family. Due to the advancement of medical care and the expansion of the funeral industry, Americans now see dealing with the dead as belonging to the medical and funeral industries. Therefore, in America, facing and touching a dead body is seen as taboo. No matter how death is viewed among different cultures, everyone must agree that death is the most unpleasant reality. When we talk about death, we immediately think of fear, pain, sadness, separation, loneliness, and more. Why do we fear death? We, we have fear of death because we feel that death is an unknown entity. It is human nature to understand and make sense of the world around us, and even to be able to control everything around us. However, people are often scared of death because of the complete lack of control over it. Some people fear that when death approaches, they will experience excruciating pain and suffering from terminal illnesses or surgeries. Others fear that they will completely cease to exist after they die, especially people without religious or personal spiritual beliefs. I had a colleague who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer when he was only 49 years old. He had no religious belief. 1 week before he died, he told me that he was very scared. He did not know what to expect from death. He died with fear without the support of a religious belief. And then there are people who have fear of eternal punishment after they die. They fear that they will face eternal torment in hell. Another common fear of death is what will happen to our loved ones after we die, such as who will care for them after we are gone. But the most common fear is that people are afraid to die alone. Dying alone means it is something that we are doing alone and cannot be shared by others. The Infinite Life Sutra says, amid worldly affections and desire, people are born alone and die alone. They come and go alone. carried along by their karma, they reach their rebirth destinations, places of suffering or of joy. We face joy, anger, sorrow, and even death on our own. No one can experience it for us. My first immediate encounter of death was when I was in third grade primary school. My grandfather was playing tennis with the governor one afternoon at the governor's mansion. My grandfather suddenly had a massive heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital for resuscitation. When our whole family arrived at the hospital, my grandfather was pronounced dead by his doctor. His body was released and sent home. I remember seeing my grandfather's body lying peacefully on a bed, looking like he was just sleeping. I couldn't believe he was dead until he was lowered into the coffin. From that moment on, I was curious about death. After my grandfather's death, I often asked myself, why do we die? Where do we go after we die? How can we avoid death? So, what is death? From the medical point of view, death occurs when the organs in a person's body irreversibly lose their function. In particular, organs including the heart, respiratory organs, and the brain. In other words, death is the end of a life. So what is Buddhism's view on death? Buddhism views death through three angles, specifically life, temperature, and consciousness. First is life, or the ability to detect whether a person's heart is still beating. Next, there's the question of whether the body's temperature has turned icy cold. Finally, one must detect whether his consciousness has left his body. A person is declared dead once his consciousness leaves his body. The Buddha said that life is in between each breath. When we cannot come up with our next breath, our life is over. Buddhism advocates that one should always be mindful of death and impermanence because death is just a breath away. We will never know when our death will happen, when there are thousands of different ways it could happen. Therefore, we must be prepared for our death at all times. In Buddhism, death doesn't signify the end of one's life. In fact, we will take rebirth according to our karma after we die. After we take rebirth, we will face death again, and then rebirth. And the cycle will continue. Buddhism divides death into three main causes. First cause, death due to expiry of lifespan. A person's karma from a past life dictates length of his next lifespan. How long a person lives during this lifespan, even down to the number of breaths he takes in a lifetime, is a set number, which is dictated by past karma. If that person hasn't accumulated more merit to add towards his lifespan, he will die as soon as his lifespan's expectancy has been used up. Second cause, death due to expiry of blessings. One dies once a person finishes using up all his blessing for this lifetime, even though he hasn't used up his lifespan. Such a person can starve to death after having consumed all his resources. A person freezes to death without proper clothing. Enjoying one's blessing leads to depleting of one's blessings. One shouldn't indulge in his blessings mindlessly without accumulating more merit. We must cherish our blessing and save some for our future. Third cause, untimely death. A person dies without using up his lifespan of blessings, but dies from reckless acts such as indulging excessively on unhealthy food or alcohol, or dying from malnutrition. Further, untimely death can occur when a person is sick and refuses proper medication, leading to his death, or refuses to follow doctor's prescription and overdose on medication, etc. These are the three main causes of death according to Yogacara Sastra. It doesn't matter how we die, as our karma will lead us to our next rebirth. So why are we continually reborn in the six realms and unable to escape samsara after we die? Buddhism believes the karma that is created by our past actions contributes to a force leading us into our next rebirth. For example, we are now reborn as a human because of our past karmic actions. However, the residue of our past karmic actions that haven't yet manifested, in addition to our karma from this lifetime, will determine our next rebirth. To put it simply, when we go from death to our next rebirth, we will have a specific physical body. Our past karma will accompany this physical body, and we will start repaying our past debts caused by our past karma. Once we finish paying our debts, our physical bodies from this lifetime will also come to an end. We will continue on to our next rebirth to repay for the karma we had accumulated, plus some residual karma from past lives. Where we take our rebirth depends on the weight of our karma. They can be divided into three aspects. The first one is heavy karma. The second one is karma through habits. And the third one is karma through thoughts. They are known as the three factors that follow upon one's death. They are the phenomena that determines one's next rebirth after one takes his last breath. First is heavy karma. A person will follow his heaviest karma to his next rebirth when he dies. This heaviest karma can be offenses or good deeds. For those who are about to descend into the three wretched realms, his worst karmic offenses of this lifetime and the karmic retribution of his next lifetime will start to affect his feelings and thoughts during his death. Scenes from hell will start to appear in front of him while he's dying. His thoughts will be controlled by his karma at this moment, and there's nothing he can do. By contrast, when a person has done a lot of good, he should be reborn in the human or celestial realms the minute he takes his last breath. He doesn't have to undergo the state of battle, which is a transition between death and rebirth. However, he is still within the six realms of rebirth. The second factor is karma through habits. It is possible a person hasn't committed any huge offenses or done any significant good deeds during his lifetime. However, he may have some particular tendencies, and these collective habits will guide him into his next rebirth. Let me share a Buddhist story to illustrate this point. During the Buddha's time, a respected elder asked the Buddha, I normally recite the Buddha's name mindfully, but when I get to the intersection, I get distracted by many pedestrians, elephants, and horses. So I lose my mindfulness to recite. I'm just thinking, what happened when I suddenly died right there? And will my soul descend into the lower realms? The Buddha explained to him that because he had always recited the Buddha's name and had cultivated such good habit, even though if he died without mindfulness, his soul will still rise above. Therefore, if a person recites the Buddha's name regularly but dies unexpectedly one day, he will follow his good habits and be reborn in the Pure Land. He will still be greeted by Amitabha Buddha and the sacred assembly. The third factor is karma through thoughts. When a person hasn't committed any particular good or evil karma and has no particular habits, the thoughts that he has in his last moment of being alive will direct him to his next rebirth. If this person receives assisted recitation and is told to seek rebirth in the Pure Land, plus recite the Buddha's name himself, he will be reborn in the land of bliss. However, if a dying person is attached to his family and reluctant to leave them, and it just so happens that his house pet is giving birth during that time, he will take rebirth as one of the newborn house pets immediately after he takes his last breath. According to these three aspects, when our lives are coming to an end, our thoughts are completely controlled by our karma, so we are totally helpless and we can't control the destination of our rebirth. So, how do we transcend the control of karma at the point of our death? At this moment, only by reciting the Buddha's name can alter everything. If a dying person receives assisted recitation and once this six-character name, Namo Amituofo Buddha, enters this person's hearing, the immeasurable merit of this Buddha's name can alter this person's karma immediately. Once Amitabha Buddha's infinite light shines upon this person, his karma has no way for manifestation. The Buddha's name will start to direct this person's physical and mental feelings, change his thoughts, and eradicate all his fear. The Buddha's name will make this person feel stable and peaceful. We have created a lot of extremely heavy bad karmas, and we start to have fears once we come towards the end of our life. We will start to have doubts whether Amitabha Buddha has the ability to save us iniquitous ordinary beings. No matter how large our karmic offenses are, Amitabha Buddha will not be hindered to save us. Amitabha's salvation to all sentient beings is absolute, unconditional, and unimpeded. Anyone who is an exclusive Amitabha name reciter and who is willing to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss, regardless of whether he is guilty or not guilty, blessed or not blessed, he will be reborn in the land of bliss. Master Sandal said, all the iniquitous ordinary beings, once they revert to recite Amitabha's name and are willing to be reborn in the Pure Land, whether he recited for the rest of his life or recited for 7 days or 1 day, 10 times, 3 times, or 1 time, Amitabha Buddha and the sacred assembly will greet this person and he will be reborn in the Pure Land. Therefore, only the name of Amitabha Buddha is the most reliable. Under the rays of Amitabha's light, a dying person's mind will not fall into confusion, and his consciousness will not be ambiguous. We must believe we possess deep and heavy karma, and believe today could be our last day. The best way to prepare for death is to recite the Buddha's name. We can transcend samsara and leave death behind by reciting the Buddha's name. There is no other way that surpasses the Buddha's name recitation. As a Buddha reciter, our rebirth in the Pure Land has already been assured in this present lifetime. We will always have the name of Namo Amituofo Buddha in our heart. This Buddha's name is infinite and boundless, unfathomable, and profound with unsurpassed merit. No matter when we die or how we die, Amitabha Buddha's powerful, compassionate vow will bless us. Our illnesses will disappear, and our mind will not be confused when we die. Under the shine of his unimpeded light, we will rejoice sitting on the lotus platform and being reborn in his Pure Land and becoming a Buddha. A Buddha reciter's death is always joyful, with no suffering, and without fear. When we face death, we don't have the panic of fear and have no need for us to attach to all the things we own and love. We just have to recite Namo Amituofo Buddha and wait for Amitabha Buddha and the sacred assembly to receive us. Amitabha Buddha and the sacred assembly will receive us, even if we cannot recite due to illnesses. All we have to do is wait quietly and patiently. Amitabha Buddha and the sacred assembly will automatically come and greet us. No offensive karma can hinder our rebirth, since death is never separated from us. Therefore, Buddha name recitation should not be separated from us either. The best way to prepare for our death is to hand everything over to Amitabha Buddha. Since tonight's topic is about preparation for your death, have any lotus friends made their final will yet? Master Jing has already made his will in 2015. I will share just a few main details here. According to Master Jing's will, if Master Jing suddenly fell ill critically or unconscious, do not send him to the hospital, but let him wait quietly for rebirth. After passing, there's no need to clean his body, change clothes, or encoffin him. No ceremony is needed, and have a speedy cremation. Do not post obituary, do not have funeral service, do not erect memorial tablet, and do not perform annual memorial service. These are just some examples of the terms in Master Jing's will. Anyone who is interested can find it online. If anyone has spouses or children who have different religious beliefs, it is always wise to have a will made in advance because you don't want any surprises for your loved ones after you die. It is a good idea to have a legitimate will written by an attorney. A will can prevent loved ones' confusion and infighting among themselves while preparing for your funeral, and it will guarantee you a dignified send-off. I will give my mother as a good example. My mother is a sincere Buddha reciter. Since her children have different religious beliefs, she decided to have her will made with an attorney almost 10 years ago. In her will, she wants no life support if she becomes critically ill, and she also specified that her body should not be touched or moved within 8 hours of her passing. She also specified to have assisted recitation by Pure Land Buddhism Assisted Recitation Group. Her funeral service will be conducted with Amitabha recitation and followed by cremation. Many people are afraid to get their will made because they believe once a will is made, they will die very soon. That is not true. Just look at my mother. She is still alive and has no worries because she feels like a ton of weight had been lifted off her shoulders since she made her will. All she does now is happily recite Amitabha's name exclusively for the rest of her life. Before I sign off tonight, I would like to remind everyone, are you ready to face death? On that note, I wish for everyone to recite the Buddha's name with peace of mind and have a joyful rebirth in the Pure Land. Namo Amituofo.